Hi everyone, this is Jonathan Raj here from PropNext Malaysia. So today I wanted to make a short video on tips of buying residential properties. So let's get into it. Let me just lower down my picture. So yeah, today basically the first thing that you have to do is you need to have a budget before pursuing in buying a property. So we'll go to the next slide. So in having a budget, you need to consider two things. One is the property price, and the second part is all the legal agreements. These legal agreements, which consists of sales and purchase agreement and loan agreement. So let's get into property price. So for property price, basically everybody, you need to have you have to budget for the down payment. Basically for primary market, which is new or under construction, basically the down payment for this kind of properties are a few percent, or it can come down to zero down payment. This is depending on the developer's sales package. But for secondary market, it's a different thing. Basically you need to have 10% down payment. If 10% down payment for a 500,000 property will be about 50,000. So in purchasing property, there is two options. The first option is buying cash. This is for people who are, they have some money, they don't want to take a bank loan, they are willing to pay the property and buy it with cash instead of paying for the interest in the bank. So for primary market, how it works is you have to pay a down payment. It could be a few percent to zero down payment as mentioned above, and the balance you need to pay upon stages of construction. So when I say stages of construction, it depends. Let's say first thing is piling. After piling, then there will be construction of the building itself, the development. So if depending on which level is your unit at. So basically on the high unit, let's say you take the top floor, so basically it will take time before it reaches there. So that is how. So basically when the construction is done up to your level, then you have to pay for that stage of the construction. So for secondary market, you basically have to pay that 10% down payment. So let's say for instance 500,000 property example just now, so you have to pay 50,000 first. Then after that you sign the SMP. So after signing the SMP, during execution of the SMP, you have to pay the balance of 450,000 within 3 to 4 months. So we will go to the next one, which is most of us we will go through this option, which is buying with a bank loan, or people say mortgage option. So with this, for primary market or under construction projects, you pay the down payment. It's a few percent or zero down payment. Then after, the balance will be paid by the bank under the bank loan. So you just have to service the monthly payment. So for secondary market, you have to pay 10% down payment first. So let's say for instance a 500,000 500,000 property like we've been talking. So you pay 10% first, which is 50,000. Then the balance 450,000 will be under the bank loan. So next will be legal agreements. In most properties purchase nowadays, you have the legal agreement, which is the sales and purchase agreement and the loan agreement if you are taking the mortgage option. So in any agreement, there is three parts, which is the legal fees, the disbursement, and the stamp duty. So stamp duty is a tax by the government. So for project, it depends on the developer sales package. Normally for developers, for different projects, they have different mechanism. So let's say for instance certain projects, they will give free legal fees, disbursement and stamp duty. So it really depends on the project and depends on developer. So for sub sale, the rule of thumb is actually to keep 5%, to budget 5% for all these legal fees. So let's say for instance you have you're going for property which is 500,000, so you need to budget about 25,000 for all these legal fees and all that. So next I will talk about the loan part, which most people they what do you call it, they are looking into it, and people have concern for this. So normally for the banks, they will use DSR, or to check on eligibility, which is debt service ratio. So what is debt service ratio? Basically is the total monthly commitment that you have. It could be your hire purchase for a car, or your PTPTN loan, or any other housing loan that you have. So after that, you will add into the mortgage loan which you are applying for. So let's say you are buying a 500,000 property. So the monthly installment should be about 2,000 to 2,005. So then after that, divided by your net income. So normally for banks, the rule of thumb is 70%. So they will look at 70% debt service ratio. It's okay, but it depends on banks. Different banks have the different threshold. So most banks will go for 70%. So some other banks you can go up to a much higher rate actually. So the next part in the bank, during bank application, they will look at your CCRIS, which is Central Credit Reference Information System. This is basically to check your credit score. So in this report, basically they will see all your credit line of credit which has been given to you. So let's say for instance your credit card, your hire purchase, your PTPTN loan, any other loans that you have. So to get this report, actually you can just drop by Bank Negara to get a copy from the CCRIS kiosk. So it's actually free of charge. You can just go, I've done it myself, I've gone to Bank Negara, just go to the kiosk, just put in your IC inside, and basically they'll print out for you. So if your credit score is okay, basically you can get 90% loan. If say for instance your credit score is not very good, not to worry, basically you just have to buff up, basically to make it better. So you cannot purchase now, maybe you have not made any you have made some lapse on your payment. So basically you can just plan for the next few months, basically to get everything smoothly, then after you reapply again. So if you are purchasing your third residential property, basically you only can get 70% loan. So for the first two you can get 90, but your third residential property you only can get 70% loan. As for the tenure for the loan, basically how they calculate is maximum is 35 years, or upon 70 years of age, whichever is earlier. So that means if say for instance you're 35, so 70 minus 35, so you can get 35 years loan. If say for instance you are 40, 70 minus 40, basically 30%, 30 years you can get the tenure. So that I'll wrap up in this video. If you got any questions, basically you can just drop me my contact below. I've included some links so that you can actually go into detail, like for instance the DSR, where to get the CCRIS report, and how to go about it. So thank you very much.